at the next destination. But let me put it this way. I don't want to share that. Uh, as you start writing your chapter 1, please remember this. As you start writing your chapter 1, please remember this, that research is a construct, and I think we encountered this, and I just want to refresh your mind, that research methodology is a roadmap. And we have started that roadmap by wanting to engage with chapter 1. That's why I want your topics, and I want the concept, and I want the 3 journal articles, so that I can give you meaningful feedback. We agree with you, and we freeze our topic, and now we work with it. So I'll do that for each student as your first supervisor. So research methodology consists of method, philosophy, logic, and assumptions. And you must have this bigger picture as you start to write your chapter 1. And we have an advantage because we did thesis writing at master's level. So this is a drawing of an iceberg. And I'm saying what you see as the methods, what we call things like population, sample, data collection, data analysis, those methods, that is just the tip of the iceberg. If you're going to be an intuitive researcher, then you must know supporting that method, that tip of the iceberg, is a huge mass of other constructs consisting of philosophy, logic, and assumptions. So at PhD level, there's no way you're going to write your chapter 3 without telling me what is your philosophical paradigm? Where are you sitting? Are you a positivist who believes in measurement and believes in reality of objects? Or are you a constructivist or an interpretivist? You are going to make observations yourself and then begin to generate ideas from those observations. Or are you like Professor Ayiro, who works in the mixed methods paradigm? He believes that life is not about the North Pole qualitative, the South Pole quantitative, or life is not about positivists and constructivists. Life is about a continuum. So, although in chapter 1, we will not be mentioning the actual aspects of methodology, it's very important for you to begin to think, what in this study of mine, what path am I going to walk in? Am I a positivist or am I a constructivist? So that is so important. And I would like to advise that we seriously go to the class reference text and ask ourselves, I am doing research methodology. It is like an iceberg, and the tip of that iceberg are the methods. That's what people will see. They will say Omolo is a quantitative researcher or a qualitative researcher or a mixed methods researcher. So I also want you to as you pick your topic and as I give you feedback, I'll be kind of indicating where you will sit in terms of your method. What philosophy will you adapt? And we are at PhD level, so we must think at a macro level. And I've emphasized, who are you? Do you believe in measurements and absolute reality? You are a positivist? Or are you an interpretivist who is going to construct reality from observation? Or are you a pragmatist? You are going to rationalize and use both. And I know that the majority of you, not by design, but just by wanting to have a research, a thesis that not only talks to us about statistics, but also has a voice, that also is causing advocacy, that is also bringing in tears or joy. So if it is Koito from my home area in Wasingishu, we would want to hear the ululations of the mothers as the negotiations were peacefully concluded. If it is circumcision as a phenomenon, you would like to hear the agony of the mother of the boy as he saw the poor little thing, going through the harrowing experience of circumcision. But also, we'll want to know how many boys were circumcised. Yeah, we would like to know what kind of money goes into it. We would like to know the duration of the initiation period. So we will quantify certain aspects, but we'll also be picking those aspects that give meaning to those statistics. So we are pragmatic. Logic is very important. What is your ontological stance? What is your thinking about the nature of existence or matter? That is ontology. So you must have a very definite logic about the reality. Epistemology is how would you construct knowledge? How is, for example, if I go to Luo Nyanza, nowadays I don't see them. I don't know where those shoes went. We used to really work hard. The December holidays would really come together and go and weed people's chambers or harvest maize so that you'd buy a nice pair, very decent, neat pair of Akala. My home was in Vihiga, so I would just run down to Kisumu, and you buy a very well done pair of shoes. They were called Akala shoes, made out of tires. That is a shoe. But somebody who grew up in Nairobi, not in Kibera, but grew up in Nairobi, somewhere else, for them, a shoe was Clark's. So their construction or their knowledge about what a shoe was, the epistemology, conceptualization of what a shoe is, will be different. Give an example of a toilet. When I was growing up, the knowledge constructed for me to learn from my parents or my community that a toilet was a hole, and you went in, and there was hardly a door. But then when I came to Nairobi, and I had this privilege to stay with this a Jewish family, a toilet was inside the house, which was bad manners. You know, it was very bad manners to go in the house when you're going to the toilet. And I can go on and on and on. That is the logic. And then in this chapter 1, you're going to engage with assumptions. You must tell me what are the assumptions you are setting up if this study is going to hold. So I expect all of us to have this overall big picture of what research methodology is. The next thing I want and I'm really tempted to talk about assumptions, but so that we are very clear, let me draw this out. Let me talk about assumptions because we are all going to have to deal with them as we write our chapter 1. And here I'm just summing up. So please forgive me if I'm moving a little too fast. But I want you to note that I'll be expecting you to tell me about assumptions. And I've what I've highlighted in red here, but let me, can somebody just read us this paragraph? I think it's important. Please. One of you pick it up for us, please, on assumptions, because we have mentioned them there, and I know that when you're doing your defense, that's where we shall pin you down. Do you have a reader? My team coordinating. And remember, this work, these classes are recorded, and the 10 marks for participation will come from here. So Caroline Njagi, please, thank you very much. Caroline, and then there is, let me see, Ibrahim will be next. Caroline, take the floor.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Introduction. In our years of working with many postgraduate students, we have found that there is still a prevailing confusion with the term assumptions when developing dissertations. In fact, in discussions with even many experienced researchers and doctoral mentors, this confusion exists. There is a dearth of research methods classes for postgraduate students. As we reflect on our own doctoral journey, an in-depth discussion on the implications of assumptions on the research development process is vital to postgraduate students. At best, postgraduate students gain a background in philosophical assumptions centered on the values and belief systems of individuals, such as those related to A, epistemological assumptions, or what counts as knowledge and justified, Creswell and Porth, 2018. B, ontological assumptions or questioning whether they are universal or multiple realities. And C, axiological assumptions or the extent to which the researcher's own values and biases are known and enter the study.
Yes, can you pause there?
Okay.
Those are assumptions at PhD level. And I want you to, I've talked about epistemological and ontological assumptions. Just think about that there are multiple realities of what a toilet is. Or there are multiple realities of what a professor is. And I'm thankful for you who have decided to be put at the altar of examination so that nobody will doubt your PhD. In fact, they will venerate, they will lift you up when they say, oh, you have a PhD from Daystar. And who was your lecturer? Am I back?
Yes, Prof.
Yes,
I'm really sorry about that. I seem to have disappeared, not by design. So I'm going to do something else here. Give me a minute. Oh, for grace to trust Him. Wow. I was looking for our lecture notes, which had disappeared, but I think we have found them. I want to say this. In chapter 1, you are going to do, chapter 1 is the introduction chapter. You're going to do background, introduction to the background of the problem. You're going to do the problem statement, which we spend a lot of time. And then you are going to do the purpose, the objectives, stroke research, questions, stroke hypothesis. And then you're going to go to the rationale and significance. Then you talk about the assumptions. It is very important also for you at PhD level to bring in the axiological assumptions, or the extent to which the researcher's own values and biases are known and enter the study, particularly for the constructivists, the qualitative researchers. So we'll want to know how much of that bias you have carried into that study. Those are the assumptions. So the struggle with you as a qualitative researcher is to tell us how will you avoid carrying too much of your own values and biases into the study. Continue reading, please.
okay.
Yeah.
We believe that having a more robust presentation of information on the topic of assumptions, as well as providing examples from journal articles and studies, will help postgraduate students and even experienced researchers and postgraduate mentors to become more astute as they investigate, examine, or explore problems requiring research and comprehensive findings that improve decision-making among researchers and other stakeholders. Therefore, the purpose of this section is to provide a framework for the presentation of information that defines or clarifies A, what is meant by the term assumption when developing research proposals or reports, B, making and justifying assumptions, and C, assumptions in qualitative research, D, the general types of assumptions, E, the statement grid for assumptions, and F, the significance of participant bias on assumptions.
Yeah. So I want to leave it there because we are not teaching assumptions we taught. I'll be sending these notes for refreshing on what assumptions are, and I've tried to highlight what I think is important. But just remember that researchers must justify their assumptions. You must justify. And you must tell us how you're going to overcome some of those assumptions as you write for us your chapter 1. And when we come to chapter 5, after you have come from the field, how many of those assumptions still hold true? So that's important. Now, the other thing I would like us to deal with in this chapter 1, and I'll want to see it clearly brought out by each and every one of us, is this aspect. And here I want my second reader to come in. These are so important, limitations and delimitations of our studies. And at the expense of over-repeating, I just want us to know that you cannot construct this chapter 1 that we are beginning to do if you are not clear of what limitations and delimitations of your study are. So reader number 2, take it up. Bring that modem. Ibrahim?
Good morning.
Morning, Ibrahim. Let's go.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Ibrahim, we can hear you.
Right
Please
about
go ahead.
the limitation and delimitations of their studies. Introduction. In my many years working with postgraduate students, I found that there is a prevailing confusion between the terms limitations and delimitations. I have seen this to be the case with both experienced and novice researchers. There is a dearth in the research methods class that is required for postgraduate students. After all, my years of working with and editing the work of postgraduate students, there still seems to be a prevailing problem. The problem is that most of them do not know the difference between the two terms, limitations and delimitations. They either have never learned the difference between the two terms or have learned alternations that further confuse them. However, I think I have found a useful definition and examples to help students and researchers understand the differences between the two terms. The outline of this section will provide information on the differences between the two terms. First, the chapter will provide clear definitions of a limitation and a delimitation. Second, the section will provide some examples of how to use them in a sentence and paragraph. Last, the section will provide examples of them from journal chapters and studies.
Okay, thank you very much. Ibrahim, thank you very much. Next reader. Next reader. Yes.
Definition of limitations. Limitations are defined as constraints on your study based on the research methodology and design. Primarily, limitations deals with constraints on the research method, that is Miles and Scott's 2017. Limitations are constraints you cannot control in your study. Simon and Goes 2013. Sorry. This is why limitations are often defined as being out of control of the researcher. However, many students do not know the reason for this definition. A recurring problem with postgraduate students is that they are completely misinformed regarding the true meaning of limitation. This is a limitation. This is confusing to them because of generic definition of a limitation. The characteristics of a study in which the researcher cannot control the limitations. Many dissertations committee chairs are just as confused. This generic definition leaves both the dissertation committee and the doctoral student confused. There is a reason why a researcher has no control over the characteristics of a study. And it is because you cannot control inherent flaws of your research methodology and design. And this is the reason why this is out of the researcher's control. Should I go on?
Yeah, just go on because then I'll come in. I want to expound on that.
Okay. With limitations, your research method and design remain constant. For example, 30 years from now, a researcher who wishes to replicate your study cannot do so by using the same research method. A future researcher using the same research method will face the same limitations you faced. These have to do with the means you have chosen for gathering and analyzing data. Limitations are those restrictions created by your research methodology. And limitations are the built-in limits of the method you use to explore your question. If you are thoughtful and analytic about your chosen method, you should have no trouble identifying the design factors that might produce inaccurate or misleading data and possibly lead to mistaken conclusions by Byrant 204.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Pause there. Ladies and gentlemen, I later on summarize all this. This is a manual we are trying to generate. A limitation has something to do with the methodology or the research design. So let me illustrate this. You are doing a study and you are collecting data. If your tool for collecting data is not valid, then you have a very serious limitation as to the truthfulness of your findings. And those limitations will remain in the study or in the results that you give us. But you see, you can't control that limitation because it is inherent in the methodology. You did not validate your tools and you went ahead and collected the data. So you end up with data that is perhaps not measuring what it is supposed to measure. That is a limitation. And then now you have no control. That is the data that you have. Another example is this. You fear statistics and you decide, I'm going to do a qualitative study. But if you're going to, like we did, I was supervising a student for a PhD in the School of Medicine in Moi, and we are looking at tuberculosis in Kericho County, TB. We went there as quantitative researchers. We wanted to know how many patients, how many times they visit the clinic, what type of drugs do they receive, do they get feeding supplements, and we wanted to measure morbidity and mortality. That sounded very good. But after we finished the study, we had a problem on our hands because we are looking at this, and I was a supervisor and asking, how come all these statistics look very neat. These patients go to hospital, they are given drugs, and yet the mortality rate is increasing. So you see, the methodology here was not giving us the results that would make meaning of that situation. So it became a serious limitation until we had to redesign the study and say, no, we are going to do a mixed method study. We are going to interview these patients. So we're not going to depend on records and get closed questionnaires. We are going to open these interview schedules and get information. So we went. And we went to the homes and we found those people with tuberculosis. And they were in very bad shape. And the question was, why? It is because these people in the very homes, they had grandchildren. And we took stock of the numbers. So the food rations that were being given at the hospital, because you can't take TB drugs on an empty stomach, they could not eat the food. And they told us, how do you expect me to eat the food when these, my orphans, their children had died of maybe HIV-related conditions, and they had orphans in the home. So when they came with food, the children ate the food, and these people couldn't therefore sustain the treatment regime. So we picked the voices, like, how do you expect me to eat when my grandchildren, who are left by their parents, are looking at me? You see, that revealed the problem. But if you can see the limitation of the approach, the research design being quantitative was not giving us the results. The other one, of course, is some of those patients are very scared. Are these government agents coming to find out what I've done with the food rations? Just like when we went to schools to check on the number of tablets, we would find the tablets very neat, packed in the store and locked. And some kept at the chief's house, like in Isiolo. And the headmasters and the teachers said, we don't want problems with the government. We want when they come to count, they find their tablets. We don't want to be surcharged. So the veracity of their pronouncements were not true. Now, if you're not getting the truth, then the validity and reliability of your findings in the study will be not true. So to wrap up this, because I have many other aspects to go through, I just want you to note that this is a very important section in your chapter 1, limitations and delimitations. I'll want to know, what were your limitations or what are your anticipated limitations, and how do you intend to control them? Next reader.
I can read.
Yeah, go ahead.
Another definition of a limitation is that it is a design flaw. Limitations identify potential weaknesses in the study's research design and methodology. Limitations tend to act as an anticipator of the study's flaws, Calabrese 2006. Limitations are restrictions in the study over which you have no control. For example, your study may be limited to a narrow segment of the population. You want to study them, but may be limited in the research method you choose to use, Newton and Ruthstam 2007. Further limitations are constraints outside of the researcher's control and are inherent in the study, which could affect the generalizability of the results, Farrell 2016. A limitation is a factor that may or will affect the study, but is not under the control of the researcher. In such studies that use questionnaires, a common limitation is the willingness of the individuals to respond at all, to respond in a timely fashion, and to respond accurately. Limitations are important for the possible effects they may have on the outcomes of the study, and they are not controlled by the researcher. Limitations typically surface as variables that cannot be controlled by the researcher, but may limit or affect the outcome of the study. Limitations can become a problem for students if they are not specified. Mulch and pack.
Thank you. I don't know whether you notice, I am sermonizing. It is so painful for me as a professor of research methods when I see my students, and it's not just Kenyan students. I'm an external examiner at the University of Cape Town and Pretoria and others. You have this problem. So that's why, at the expense of overemphasizing, I have put myself on that altar to emphasize that limitations relate to research design and methodology, and they are out of your control. Once you have set up the tools, you can't do anything about it. And you must be able to specify those limitations. Can we have the last reader, because I want to run away and look at the limitation, then I go back to the summary.
Can I go ahead?
Go ahead, please. Yeah.
Yes. When a researcher discusses
that is Julius.
limitations,
Is that Julius
yes,
Musioka?
Julius.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. When a researcher discusses limitations, they are discussing the possible and the real weakness of their research designs. Limitations are described by the researcher are those that may or did not affect the study validity or findings. The limitations tend to address the researcher's awareness of the shortcomings in their research designs and methodological approach to the study, thus adding to the researcher's credibility. Calabres 2009. See table 10 1 and 10.2, figure 10.1.
Okay. Just pause there. You are the researcher's credibility. Why, when the World Bank puts up a consultancy bid or World Vision, why are you never getting that? Why aren't you winning that consultancy? It is detected when I read your chapter 1. What are the limitations? What are the anticipated limitations, and what are you going to do about it? So, for example, if you are doing a quantitative study, and I'm reading your proposal and I see you are taking a sample of 20 or 30 respondents, that proposal is thrown in the trash can. Because a quantitative study depends on a large sample to minimize the error. I'm trying to say those are some of the hiddens. And just note this, as I run away from this because of time, that limitations are equal to constraints of the study based on research methodology and design. And you'll get this literature, and we have written, or I've written, not I, we are three of us writing the manual. We have written several examples of those limitations. And then we have examples of limitations. Maybe I want us to look at this example, this one, only. So the person who was reading
that, Prof. Livingston here. Can I read? Okay.
Okay. Go ahead, Makori.
Thank you very much. Limitations are comprised of the restrictions implemented by the researcher's choice of methodology. These are factors in a study that cannot be controlled by the researcher. As a basis for this study, the limitations were threefold. The first limitation in this study is the instrumentation. This study used an instrument that was closed and did not have open-ended questions. The second limitation is in the data collection. This study used aggregated data that was not collected from the state in a publicly accessible medium. This is limited in descriptive statistics. The last limitation is in the course. Teen leadership is one of the several different characteristics of education opportunities offered throughout the state. Further, investigation into other programs may offer different insights.
Yeah.
Say 2019.
Thank you. So that is an example of a limitation. And I want us to agree, because of time, that you will read thoroughly as you construct your chapter 1. I'll be excited and delighted and accomplished when I read your limitation and delimitation, and it is reading right. Please go into the class text to reinforce what we are saying. Let us look at delimitation. And the class, I want you to note that this is a PhD class. So I don't want to see this word called scope. Scope. Scope is what we call, at this level, delimitation. In fact, when I see scope used in a PhD or in a proposal bid, I'm very worried, because it tells me your intellectual depth of penetration into what these constructs of research are. Somebody pick it up from there. And please, time. I'm seeing we are already at 20 to 8.
I can pick it.
Alright, Prof. The limitations are constraints on your study based on population scopes. That is Miles and Scott, Street 17. Think of the limitations as the boundaries of your study. The limitations are defined as chiefly concerned with the scope of the study. The limitations are described, the scope of the study, or establish parameters. The limitations also prevent you from stating that your findings are generalizable to the whole population.
Pause. The limitations describe the scope of the study. So when you say scope of the study, I get worried. Because when you describe the scope of the study, you will give me established parameters. And the most important aspect is this: there is a delimitation. Remember, limitations were around methodology and research design. Delimitations are telling us the demographic of your study. You know, population, gender, ethnicity. Those are delimitations. And so, because it is a delimitation, we cannot take the results we have gotten and generalize to the Kenyan population or the larger population. Continue reading.
Move up a bit, Prof.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, good.
Another recurring problem that postgraduate students have is with misunderstanding the true meaning of delimitation. This is confusing to them because of the generic definition of delimitation. the characteristics of a study in which the researcher can control the limitations. Okay, why is that? The primary reason why they have problems writing the limitations is because that definition is only surface level and does not give further rationale as to why it is. There is no context behind the definition. So again, postgraduate students often do their delimitations wrong. This generic definition of a delimitation does not help students understand why they often write them wrong in a study. As mentioned earlier, they confuse delimitations and limitations as though they are interchangeable. This has been a recurring problem with postgraduate students.
Continue.
One of the prevailing issues on delimitations is that there is no consensus on what they actually are. Many authors profess different definitions of delimitations. So we have a conflict in terms of what limitations actually mean. Many authors state the conventional definition of delimitation that they are within the control of the researcher. That's Madsen 1990, Moch and Batch 1998. Again, the key meaning of delimitation is defined as factors that prevent you from claiming that your findings are true for all people in all times and place. Thomas and Rebecca, 2000, Jacobs, 2011. Another interesting aspect of delimitations is that they imply limitations on the populations to which the results of the study can be generalized. For example, you may decide to only study males, either because the theory of which your hypotheses are based has not been studied in females, or because you have a really accessible population of the males but not females. Newton and Rodman, 2007. Think of the limitations as self-imposed boundaries that you use to delimit the scope of your study. Calabrese 206. The fact is that limitations also act as denotations, meaning as boundary of the study and ways in which the findings may lack generalizability. In considering this, you should examine such concerns as the nature and size of the sample, the uniqueness of the setting, the time period during which the study was conducted, and the limitations of the particular method selected. Galaton 1998.
Thank you. Pause there. And this is a PhD class, so I am not at any point of worry that you are comprehending arguments we are throwing at you, and begin to note that delimitations are actually self-imposed boundaries that we use to delimit the scope of the study. So if I'm talking about a certain characteristic, like the zeal for football in Nyanza and Western Province, then my scope will be, I will delimit my scope to Nyanza and Western Province, but I must say why. Because, for example, since independence, the great heroes of football, Ocheng Rule, Alan Figo, Shikanga, and the others, Kadenge, came from those areas. So that's why I want to go there, because I think there is a genetic pool that predisposes people from there to want to play football. That is my delimitation, and I must justify why my study in looking at our performance as a team, Harambee Stars, is going to the dogs. And I'll cause a delimitation to Nyanza and Western Province. And when I talk of Nyanza, we have Motegos from Kisii and the others. I want us to finish with this last paragraph I'll leave you to read the rest so that I can go to the next aspect because of time. Go on.
Delimitations are the factors that prevent you from claiming that your findings are true for all people in all times and places. For a quantitative study, these are the factors that limit generalization. For qualitative study, these are factors that limit the relevancy of your study to other populations or individuals. For
Pause.
example,
For quantitative study, you cannot generalize. Why? Because you had a demographic delimitation, and you have told us the reasons why. But the interesting one is for a qualitative study. These are the factors that limit the relevancy of your study to other populations. So if you are doing a phenomenon like poverty in deprived urban areas, the factors that will come out from different urban areas, let's say you are studying langars in Eldoret City, the langars setup, as you are dealing with the phenomenon of poverty, would be very different from the Kibera phenomenon of poverty. Why? Because you only dealt with langars, and maybe you dealt with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 homesteads. You cannot generalize. And there are many factors we can put in. So, poverty in langars doesn't quite get to the level of where you can't get ugali, even if it is ugali sosa, small piece, and sukuma wiki. But you cannot carry the findings of that study in terms of relevancy to poverty in the slums of Kibera. Why am I saying that? I am just challenging you as a researcher that because of delimitation, you cannot generalize. There's no generalizability of your findings. Carry on.
for example, if you study nurses in Nairobi, you will not be able to extend your results to nurses in Mombasa. The point is that many quantitative studies gather data at a moment in time. For example, if a researcher 30 years from now will seek to replicate your study, then they will have to decide what factors will get in the way. The limitations will be those factors, branch 2 or 4.
Okay, thank you. So I urge you, as you go into your chapter 1, as my PhD students, to engage with this literature on delimitation and limitation. What am I saying? I'm saying that until you engage at this level, then you lack the depth or the standing to be that PhD student we are looking for. Livingston Makori, your hand is up. Go ahead.
Yes, Prof. Assume
Yes.
I'm studying, let's say Gen Zs.
Yes.
Gen Zs and how they view, for example, careers in a given industry. Can the findings be generalized in another industry where the similar Gen Zs are? For example, in nursing and those in maybe engineering?
Yeah. A good question, but is this a quantitative or a qualitative study? If it is quantitative,
yeah,
and your sample is large, a large sample contains the characteristics of the population.
Okay.
Yeah. And by the way, Gen Z is very interesting. The Gen Zs in Kakamega, if you did a study on the Gen Zs in Kakamega at the point of revolution, in quotes, and the Gen Zs in Nairobi, you had the Gen Zs in Nairobi being labeled as what is this? What is it? What is this
KFC,
chain? Yeah. KFC what?
Uber.
Yeah. But now there's a KFC in Kakamega.
Yeah.
But I'm sure the Gen Zs in Kakamega would pass through an Ugali Sukumawiki joint to
The
be strong.
equivalent.
Yeah,
The
to be strong.
equivalent.
To be strong.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, allow us to move.
Prof, I think
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to dispel the confusion. Victoria Mwangi says she's confused, but I was just wondering whether she wants to raise at this point or you.
Oh, you are on the chat. I'm not there. Yeah, go ahead. No problem.
Victoria, do you want to, what's confusing? Scope, the limitations?
Yes, thank you. What's confusing me is when you talk about the limitations, is that the scope, or do we scrap the scope out altogether and just leave the limitation? That's where the confusion was coming from.
Yeah, you know what the problem you have is sentimentalism, and you are married. You are married to scope, and who would not want to use scope, nice and short? Who wants to have this jargon of delimitation? But I was hoping that I have tried to tell you why scope is actually a subset of a delimitation. So I'll want you to read further, but I'm also saying you yourself have chosen to walk on a higher pedestal. See, Mimi? And since you have come to my church, my preaching is that there shall be no scope in your thesis structure. Because that scope becomes ambiguous for me as a researcher. And we are trying to get you to a level of clarity. And so if you're confused, that is very good, my dear. That's very good. So it means you now go and read and read and read various references. Daystar, we have online access to all the journals, and read and read and read and read. And even the articles you're going to pick, run quickly to the section on delimitation and limitation and see the difference. Nathan.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Prof. Mine is if for example, I'm from the media. If I'm looking at the concept of freedom of the media and the defamation law, the libel law, and how the interaction of the two affect the freedom of expression by the journalists or the journalism practice. And I'm taking example of maybe two media houses, looking at taking my sample from journalists from about two media houses or three.
Yeah, I get you.
Will I be afraid to go qualitative, assuming with a belief that these journalists are the same, and that my results can easily be generalizable in other media houses? Will I be afraid, or?
I would be, you see, that's almost a case study of those two media houses. Huh?
Exactly.
And so it will be superfluous. It is not unimaginable, but it will be superfluous for you now to think that you have attained the level where you can engage in generalization. But I don't know how deep your mind is. If you go to Nation House or Nation Media, maybe let us call it Ukweli Media, and you go to the Uongo Media. If you go to the Ukweli Media and you find across the country they have a network and you can sample more than 100 journalists. You see, is a house, but we are not talking of a house. We are talking of an entity that has over 100 respondents. And then you go to the other one, then you can see the population is growing bigger and we are almost attaining generalizability acceptable levels. But that's why I'm excited. I want to see your topics coming by, I think it's this Sunday, so that I can see and also give you suggestions. And then we will try to have a common seminar where we just flag everybody's topic and people say yes, or your topic and my suggestions. And me as your supervisor, I cannot pull you away from your topic, but I will urge you to trust my level of expertise, specialist, to say you must go for chemotherapy. Otherwise, we can't keep giving you pain-killing injections.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you.
Charity Njimu, your name is up. Your hand is up, sorry.
Thank you, Prof. I would like you to clarify about the assignment due for the 500 words. What is the structure of the concept paper?
First of all I want to see in your concept paper is an introduction to the background of the problem. Just a very brief introduction. And you know, we have discussed what that background should carry. Secondly, I would like a mention of the problem statement. And please don't write me a whole problem statement. Just indicate the manifestation, the context, and the gap. And then tell me, these will be my research questions, or these are my research objectives. And those of you who are quantitative, this will be the hypothesis. And then because you'll have read some journal articles, you can then say very briefly, one line, I'll adapt the chaos theory in the study, or the technology adoption theory, or the theory of planned behavior. You don't elaborate. That's all I want. Do you get?
Yes, I think, Prof, we've really tried to let the students know this is not the usual typical concept of introducing methodology and the rest, but I think they always would want to hear it from you. But I think we've really even emphasized on the WhatsApp group that just mentioned the intro, the statement of a pure problem, the objectives, research questions, and just state your theoretical framework. So I'm glad that you have clarified the same.
Thank you. Charity, you are God sent. You have saved the face of an agonizing and frustrated professor.
Thank you.
Charity, when I was reading, you are working through the annotation and the highlighting and the annotation of the introduction to the background. That's what it was. I got so frustrated in quotes, because my aspirations, my anticipation of you guys is so high. So when you highlight, you see, like I've highlighted on this slide, the limitations are the factors that prevent you from claiming that your findings are true for all people. If I'm to annotate that yellow, it is, what am I saying there? That a delimitation prevents generalization. Just that. What does that tell me? That you have the sharpness, the intellect of the mind to condense a given volume of information into narratives that I can actually join and theme that passage. But when and by the way, as I said, anybody who's 16 and above, you are almost walking to where I want you. But there was a student, I denied 1 mark. They actually got 20. I don't want to name the student. They actually got 20 out of 20. I gave them 19. Because I also have to keep my face, you know, as your professor. So that, yeah, but no, on a light note, can we purpose to punish ourselves intellectually? By the way, there's a student here who really, he or she was intriguing because they went beyond that passage actually in concretizing what a background, an introduction to the background of the problem should be and why. And she even went and looked for references from other books and journals and put them there. So Mimi, I'll leave you with that adventure. You will decide how adventurous you want to, how far, huh? Or what kind of dance, whether you want to give a Luya dance with all the energy and motion, or whether you want to do a taarab. Mimi nitasahisha, but please let me enjoy it. But you know that there are certain flaws that I felt are tragic. Because if you are told highlight, this is highlighting this yellow or the red. So if this is highlighting, let me show you. If I'm highlighting this like that, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to go to review here. And then at that review point, now I'm highlighting, at that review point, if you are doing this, I'm supposed to go to the comment, new comment, and put it there. And then start the conversation. I mean, these are fundamental skills that you must have as you move forward. So when I see a paper come to me and there are no inserts, iko shida. Even if you try to tell me what I've highlighted is this, that's not the skill I want you to have. I want when you pick a journal article like this one, you are able to say, you see, the researcher will indicate how they will narrow the specific focus of the study to identify precise research methodology, participant characteristics, context or research studied during the research. Like that. So I expect you to go, after you've done that, I expect you to highlight that. But then after you have highlighted, I want you to annotate for me. So you do that, and you go to review here, and you pick the comment. And then you tell me, what is your conceptualization? What is your construction of this knowledge here in a very concise manner? So we were teaching, we intended to pass certain skills. Lakini sasa mnaandika hivi alafu hapo chini mnaenda chini hapa, you get to somewhere like here, you then enter, and then you start describing things for me here. That is not a PhD student in Ayiro's class. And I'm not being arrogant, with all humility. And I expected that this was done at master's level, by the way. So I have no apologies. You should. How are you reading journal articles? How are you reading them? How are you reading them? And that's why I don't want us to take research methods because you want to get the mark, you want to get the grade. No. Please work with me next semester. Let us go through the semester. Let us finish your chapter 1, which you submit to me. before we start the next semester. And then let's go to chapter 2. Let's go to chapter 3. Then we shall be talking. Any comment as I move away? And sorry, I don't know. I hope people have this picture in mind. That's why I believe in the bigger picture.
And
Prof.
as you come through, you also mentioned,
Yeah.
I know students keep, they're asking, like I know that the handbook will not mention about chapter 1 having a mention of your theoretical and conceptual framework. And then the handbook would say they use the word scope, limitation, and also ask for scope. Maybe you just want to array the fears of a handbook at a PhD level so that the students can also be, so that they don't have to be scared that it must be that.
By the way, I get so, and I don't want, and I have no apologies. I get so initiated. If you're not convinced about my argument, why it can't be scope, and scope is not wrong, but scope is a subset of delimitation, what can I do? If you want to operate at that level, that's what, but you are not doing anything negative. You're not saying something wrong. Yeah. And in chapter 1, by the way, you cannot have a conceptual framework in chapter 1 if you have not mentioned your theoretical framework. So is it wrong? No. Go to Nairobi, go to Moi University, go to Kenyatta University. Chapter 1, theoretical and conceptual framework. In Daystar, we want to elaborate it in chapter 2. I'm using that word deliberately. So what do? We introduce it. We justify. We look like sensible researchers, that we didn't get the variables from heaven. Although we are a university that is mission-oriented. They did not drip from heaven. No, they didn't. And then we are telling the reader that we will expound on this in chapter 2. So I don't want you to, and this dogmatic approach, this is what has limited us. Everybody, the world is disruptive today. And really, my student must convince me why they're going in the direction they're going. And I must give the PhD student the latitude to explain to me, because then we will have theses that will make a difference in this world. I want you to look at it. Julius Musyoka, you want to say something?
Yes, thank you, Prof, for this clarity. I don't know whether you had time to look at mine, because what I did, I never had this clarity before. Mine, it's looking more of chapter 1, because I covered all the way from the introduction of the background. I covered mostly the problem statement, the hypothesis, and everything, even to the assumptions, the limitations, and the delimitations. Probably I would request if I need to get it back and redo as you have clarified, or how do I go about? Please provide that clarity.
Julius,
okay.
What you have done is not negative. All you have done is you have not followed instructions, so you can't be an A student. But so you will still get your 10, 12 marks out of 20. But there's nothing wrong, and I like that ambition. But I said 500 words because Zitaki, you see, we are now, I don't want you to sit in the old school mentality. Are you still there?
Yes, I am, and that is why.
So Julius, can you have faith? And I'm not talking to Julius. I'm not talking to the whole class. That you have a professor of research methods who is reasonably skilled and exposed. So aspire. Caroline Teti.
Professor, I just wanted to give a rejoinder to what Julius has said, and in all honesty, students have been engaging on this topic, and it has been very clear, especially with the people that I've personally engaged with, that it was not very clear the structure of this concept. In the last class, this structure was not given. We were just told, go and write a concept paper of 500 words. So I think, just like you have said, and with all due respect, that we have come from master's classes and we should have learned some of these things, you've also emphasized that we are coming to your church. We are listening to your preaching. Your preaching may be different from other preachings we've heard from somewhere. And I think it would be really helpful, even with all the knowledge that we have from our previous, learnings, that these types of clarity comes in earlier when we are doing the exercises, like when it is given for the very first time. The situation that we have found ourselves in is that we have a lot of other, like other lectures with other assignments. So what students are trying to do is try beat time by doing your assignments early, submit them early, so that you can also get time to do your readings, your other assignments, and also go back to work. So when people do this work early, they're doing it in the spirit of being excellent students and doing their best. But like you say, if you don't get the right verse of the preacher, then you may not be the A student that you wanted to be. So my request is, at the very first provision of these exercises, please just be giving us the guidelines so we know where to start. We don't get lost in the woods and struggle on our own too much.
Very good. Yeah, but Caroline, in fact, you are making me feel very nice, because that's what a PhD is all about. That's what it's all, but also when I mark, like now, I'm going to mark, what was his name again? Nathan.
Julius.
Yeah, Julius should not feel nervous. Oh my God, I handed in one chapter. No,
that was my feeling, Prof.
Yeah?
It was my feeling after you clarified on the instructions.
Yeah. Yeah, but so I'm saying you should not feel nervous that, oh my God. No, when I say you didn't follow instructions, you'll be less 1 mark or 2 marks. So let's not box ourselves too much. But the last instruction we gave, Caroline, is clear. But if you had submitted earlier and it covers all those aspects and the references, we'll look at it rationally. Now,
yes, I submitted earlier, Prof.
Okay. Now, research methodology. I think what we have done is we have a very clear idea about research design. We cover aspects of sampling and sampling techniques through reading. Validity and reliability, I don't want you to be overly worried about it, but just remember, when you're dealing with your assumptions, delimitation and limitation, these are the aspects that we have to take into consideration. Later on in chapter 3, I will cover data collection. That is not in chapter 1. And then we will do data analysis as expected. What I want to do in the seminar, so now our assignment, William, I'm coming back to you. Our assignment is to make sure that we have submitted a topic to our lecturer. When I talk of a concept, whether you have that concept of 500 words will give me your area of study, so that when I'm mining other topics, I'm using that whole area of study where you want to study. And then I would like you to give me some journal articles that are relevant to your study. Again, I'm just beginning to take you into mining. And then you'll get my feedback. And once you get my feedback, you now embark on constructing your chapter 1. So that during the seminar, chapter 2 will be literature review. We'll look at the literature review. And then chapter 3, we shall come back and essentially sit around the research design, data collection, and data analysis. So I want you to work with this bigger picture in your mind. Was that William or who was that? Please come up.
Yeah, it was me, Prof. Thank you so much for the clarification. For the 500 word submission, should it be in full prose, just like in an executive summary, or should it have section break and subheaders? Yeah.
Write it in prose. Huh? Write it in prose, because actually we are also training you on how you write your abstracts. It must be in continuous prose. Huh?
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. This thing called conceptual framework, let me stop sharing this. This thing called conceptual framework, let me just give you an example, which I'll expect in your chapter 1. Just 1 minute.
And as Prof, you're looking, just encouraging our students, whenever we have this lecture, we record our lectures. Get a moment. I know PhD can really be quite a lot. Just get a moment, go back to the lecture, because this what Prof has said is actually recorded on the concept that was expected. Just go back, and sometimes I ask me, and I respond on the WhatsApp group, and I'm sure exactly what Prof has said, I have posted on the WhatsApp group. Just always come and ask me, then I can refer to a minute and say, refer to this minute. It's because we are busy, we are doing many things, but I can tell you, if you give, most of us, if you account for some work, like for Prof, the whole day, it will be difficult to even say that. So let's just be referring to the notes, and let me get on a WhatsApp group if you have a problem. I'm always there to support, and I can refer you to the WhatsApp group where I say what the concept should entail.
I am a little worried, Dr. Maka. I'm a little worried how we cultured our students through the master's program. I'm a little worried because we seem to be so dogmatic. Even the time of submission of an assignment becomes a big issue. Somebody can just lose it. They can go berserk. But keep going. That's what this PhD is all about. And also, please accept my level, my partial level of madness, just being who I am. Sometimes as a professor of research methods, I have so many things in my head. So it's part of the madness that I keep confusing you. You just have to accept it. That's the madman you have for the time being. And I don't like things that are nicely, boxed and arranged and, no. Ask the student who got 19 out of 20. Look at the work of that student. It shows me something about that student. And that's what I hope to get cultured into all of us as we move along. But we shall overcome. We shall get there. I'm very sure. Okay, let's see. All right. I want you to look at this as we continue summarizing. Yeah, look at this. This is what I was looking for. Dr. Mark, is this showing? I hope so.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Yeah, so look at this. This thing called conceptual framework. You see, it is, this has something to do with the outputs, of course. It has to do with the quality of education or quality of instruction. You have the inputs, teacher capacity, student background, instructional materials, technology. Those are your IVs. Those are your independent variables. The pedagogy goes on in the classroom, and the outputs will be the learning outcomes, the quality of assessments, and where we are in our KCSE in the country, for example, and then student competences. I want to convince you that there's no way you can start talking about these variables if you have not engaged with the literature around quality instruction in Kenyan schools, for example. And here the theory is the theory of is the education production function model of Hanushek that relates inputs into a system and the outcomes here. So this is the conceptual framework. Now, I don't know why we are also thinking that the handbook is actually Genesis, or is it Exodus? And I just want to challenge you at that level. Is this contrary? No, does this bring in, does this contradict? Does this damage the handbook? No. No. And just remember that the world of today is disruptive. And you should be able to justify. If you're not convinced, by the way, and you want to move your conceptual framework and theoretical framework to chapter 2, mimi nasema ni sawa. But I know if you try that business in a consultancy bid to the World Bank or wherever it is disqualified. So we have to be careful. And I don't think the framers of the handbook were really thinking that. I think for me, they were saying, let us elaborate on the theory and conceptual framework in chapter 2 so that our students have a very light chapter 1, and that's fine. So I shouldn't be a problem. So that's a conceptual framework. You will draw it the way you want. I've also seen, even now, ones like I put here, this one. You see this one? This one I put here for the deep thinkers. Yeah. Because what transforms the inputs into outputs? So some of you would want to do this. They will put this as independent variables, these 4, and then another arrow straight to dependent variable, and that. But how did we metamorphose, or what energy? Because these variables, the independent variables, manipulate the outcomes. How did they manipulate the outcomes in the dependent variable? It is through processes, it is through pedagogy, and other engagement techniques.
Are those the ones you call intervening variables, Professor? The ones in the middle?
Yeah, call them intervening variables. But you know, I'm hesitant. I'm hesitant to call those intervening. If I want you to walk to the level I want you to walk. Yeah, because if I'm going to set a hypothesis now as a quantitative researcher, I might say that the learning outcomes are a function of curriculum delivery. So this curriculum delivery, if you use the word intervening, it's like it's a policy document. Uko nje. Like this is in the arena. It is dancing there and causing change. I have enjoyed the lesson. I'm bringing it to an end. I'm worried about those students who have not yet had some entry in terms of marks. I want you to use the time you have now and next week to work on your chapter 1s. I promise to relay back your proposed topic and the 500 words description so that you can start working on your chapter 1. Then hopefully you'll give me your chapter 1 as I work on it, and we start the literature review chapter 2. That's a very short. We have already done a lot of reading. I'll just summarize with a PowerPoint presentation and then tell you how do you construct a chapter 2. What comes first? What comes next? What comes after that? Then how do we bring in the studies? There'll be the studies around the phenomenon or around the variables. And then we show a summary to amplify the gap, and chapter 2 is done. Then we go to chapter 3. There being no more questions, no more business, I want to thank you. I've enjoyed the class myself. I like the questions, points of contention. That tension is good for us. It keeps our adrenaline up. And we just become alert. And also it is exciting, some of you, where this work will be single space, by the way, the 500 words. But if you had done double space, I don't want to get into those trivialities of that kind. I'm trying to look at the questions. The unlearning and so on. But let me tell you, by the time we are assembling your chapter 1, 2, and 3, you should have, some of you, if you attended the defenses of the master's class, the 50 plus, how many passed those defenses on first attempt? 40?
Yes.
Yeah, they're out in the field as a group. Simon, 46. Your hand is up.
Yes, Prof. Thanks. Thanks. I think it's been one of the very exciting classes. We've made mistakes, but as you've said, it's a PhD class. We are able to learn from others, and I don't think it's a matter of life and death, but it shapes us to be better people. I mean, there you've said that it raises our adrenaline. I think that's good once in a while. But I think at the end of the day, we get the lessons. We fall, we get up, we dust ourselves, and we're able to move forward. So I think it's been very insightful. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Yeah, that's the spirit. Over to you, Dr. Mwaka.
Yes, Prof. I mean, you have any question you can raise? I know now Prof will be moving from Prof to the VC again, meeting up our students, as a Vice Chancellor now, to support the 300 students who are stuck all the way, probably just about 6 years before he came in. Some of them went and disappeared, yet he would like to have them see how they can be taken back to the system to complete their programs, so that they don't have to feel frustrated like others. But for those who have joined the last 6 years, masters who are here, you can confirm you've completed within this year. You're going to get your PhD between the time you did your master's and the PhD, as long as the Vice Chancellor was remaining Professor Laban Ayiro. You are now in that category. So to encourage you, I've been a student like you, and recently I posted for you some photo of a lady trying to talk about their PhD, others frustrated in other universities that we don't want to mention. But we are here. This class does not end with this, because you must complete up to chapter 5, meaning we're going to have this class continue next semester again, and it will come as a seminar. We will be meeting now as we move towards chapter 3 and 4 and write, because you must develop. By the end of next semester, alongside your continuous classwork, we expect that you should have finished your proposal, ready for defense, and as a cohort, so that we surprise the world on how a PhD program is possible, as long as you put in a lot of. So just keep holding it there. Someone called the Everest of the academic journey. Once you reach that peak, you feel so nice about this. But yes, just be sure that we are there to support you. A student of Professor Ayiro was defending last week. No, he was doing a seminar, and he had a background of about, I think, 16 pages. And I said, you can't be the student of Professor Laban Ayiro and you have a background of 16. And then I referred him to a lecture where the VC was, the Prof was outlining, and he realized that is. So basically, just as the way you cite your, as a PhD student, when you cite your work in the academic, even on the defense, when you're told there's no scope, there's nothing wrong referring to a lecture and show it during the defense. A PhD is a different level of confidence, argument, rationality, and being clear with your position to justify why you're that, because you're just like a master student. So I want to encourage you to get that confidence and self-esteem, and now argue out based on what you know, based on what you've learned, and based on now the intellectual engagement you've had with different people in different books, in different materials, and that kind of thing. So encourage you. But do we have any questions?
Just one, Caroline Teti has she has a very witty sense of humor. I just read what she has written. Crazy one, that one. Yukabeth, your hand is up.
Thank you very much, Prof. I just want to ask a question, because I'm not an active student of this class. I did my research 850 some 2 years ago when I joined DASTA. So that means I'm not able to submit my assignments or engagements through the e-learning portal. So my question is, if we still want your support, even as we proceed to next semester, how is it that we can get into the system and submit our assignments and have you go through them, Prof? Asante.
Yeah, just get, are you from School of Business or Psychology?
School of Communication, Prof.
Communication, yeah. Get to your coordinator. I'm meeting, I think, the School of Applied Sciences has called the development studies of the other code. They want me to go and talk to them. Maybe you can let your coordinator liaise with that School of Humanities and Applied Sciences. But I hear what you're saying, and we'll explore. After all, you are our students.
Prof, usually it's not a big problem, because they already paid for the course, and they're just trying to repeat for the knowledge. If she had informed me would just have enrolled her in your class, but she may not necessarily be, she's not doing this for exam, I think. She's just doing this because she's repeating to understand the concept. So you would have just enrolled, and you can be, that's not very difficult.
Get hold of,
yeah.
You know, the relevant person. Personally, I have no objection.
Yeah.
Okay, can I take leave? Wish you an enjoyable, I'm sure your weekend you're full of excitement after this class, and
maybe just have 2 comments, Prof. If someone they have or 2, and then you can go.
Okay.
Anyone who wants to say a comment? I wanted to know, Prof, are they coming in class next week, or this is the last one as we?
No. This is let them work. Let them work. We'll be communicating with the feedback.
All right.
Sending them back. But can we have your topics? Can we have that submitted so that you have my feedback? And then if you find you need clarification, there is Magdalene Kieng, there is Grace Mbogo, there is Dr. Caro. They can pick that and we see what to do.
All right.
So we meet next semester for the seminar on chapter 2 and chapter 3. Yeah.
Yes, Victoria.
Okay, thank you, Prof, for this session. I have a question. Do we have a final paper to submit, or is what was the final one? Was this the final one?
Yeah, I have enough marks.
Oh my goodness,
Victoria,
we have 4 assignments.
That's why I'm marking it. I'm diligently breaking my back.
We don't have any other assignment. Class, we have given you the semester course. We have given you everything. It is online. I will post on the WhatsApp. Only Millie is the person we'll deal with and see how to support her to catch up with all of us. But just retain. There's no other. The 4 assessment areas for this class have already been clarified. You have that assignment in the group. You have this concept. You have already done your, what is it called? Your MCQ. Yes. If you ask this question a lot of time, you actually confuse yourself. Don't ask for more assignments. I think, first of all, let's deal with those ones. Because we are having this seminar again coming. We are now continuing chapter 2, chapter 3, and chapter 4.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Any other question?
Dr. Monda,
yes.
Mine is not a question, but honestly, I want to appreciate the work Professor has done to this class, especially teaching a PhD class. It has given us a lot of confidence to continue. We appreciate the work. Looking forward to graduate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's very kind.
So this is the last class.
You have actually added 2 days to my life on this earth. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Since this is the last class for this season, we are moving on. Again, I'll repeat next semester, chapter 2, chapter 3. We are developing chapter 1 this semester as we move on. One of you can give a word of thanks, and then we will now schedule this class for now, chapter 3. We must finish. As you said, you're not going to pay an extra coin. We're just finishing your process of writing your proposal and running research. Can we have someone say, appreciate, and then Prof is traveling tomorrow out of the country for various activities. You can also pray for them.
Somebody has asked, just hold on, somebody has asked about group presentations. Just submit the slides as a group. Make sure your name and your number are on them. We will not have the actual physical presentations here.
Yeah.
Submit them.
One of you?
Hello.
Yes, Millie, go ahead.
Sorry, because of the fluctuation, I missed what you were asking of me.
No, I said we'll just have a touch with you, and we'll have a meeting with Prof to see how you catch up with his assignments. Hopefully you are being supported in other courses. So we'll just have a time. Once Prof has settled down after he travel, we'll make Magdalene and I will make a contact so that we see some of the areas that you need to cover because of the time between now and before we submit exams for moderation.
Though I've also been proactively looking at the pre-recorded classes, so I'm doing also some catch-up, but I'll also go out of my way to, when Professor comes back, I'll come. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
All right. All right, one person. to finish up this? Ojoy, Walucho, and Hussein, and that will be the end. Prof has students waiting for him in main campus, Nairobi campus. Hussein, and then Walucho.
And thank you, Dr. And mine is to just thank Prof for the encouragement that he has been giving us throughout this class. And I think he has also gone extra mile of telling us not only what is happening in the class, but also in the world of research, including quoting those organizations that like World Bank, World Vision, and making us even understand some of the mistakes that scholars make when they are requesting for or making some proposals for these organizations and where they got wrong. This also gives us too many questions that we need to find the answers for ourselves, our scholars. We feel proud of you, and we shall represent you in this world. And on behalf of our entire class, I say thank you, Prof, and that may not be enough. Thanks.
Hussein, thank you, but don't make me cry. Eh? Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, Joe, I wanted to say something.
Yeah, I also want to join my colleagues in appreciating you, Dr. Karo Mwaka, for your diligence and for always being there very early in the morning throughout the course. You have been an inspiration. There are times when we wake up and we are feeling low, but your vigor and your energy just makes us look forward to the class. To you, Prof, we want to say thank you very much. You have unlocked something in our academia, what we thought we didn't know. We are now confident enough to walk into research methods, and definitely your encouragement and assurance that this is not going to take us forever, like some of the classmates who have transferred from other universities, makes us look forward. Thank you for even your patience with us. We have been complaining a lot about this and that, but you have taken it in with the humility that you have, and we just want to say, may God bless you, and may He continue to enrich you with good health. And even as you travel, we pray for journey mercies upon you and more wisdom in the future. Thank you very much, Dr. Mwaka. Pass our greetings to Magdalene and everyone else who has been on the program, plus the ICT guy. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now, John, Kanye, and Martin, you are the last. Yes, Makunda is really helpful. You know, he doesn't talk, but he just acts. And I'm really happy we will continue having him until we do our proposal defenses. Yeah, and Magdalene always communicating and just quiet and making sure your work arrives at the VC's desk. And she really puts a lot of pressure on him to ensure that you have your feedback there. Yes, there are two, Martin and you'll be the last ones to speak because Prof has to go.
Yes, Doc, I want to be very brief. I think for me it's just to say thank you, Prof. I think we are very privileged to have been taught by Prof. And for me, I would just summarize and say, even if I hadn't come for my PhD, the interaction with Prof has really changed the way I look at the world, the way I behave, the way I build character, and the way I lead. And I think that's what I would say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Touched.
And then Martin.
Thank you, Dr. Mwaka. I just wanted to pray for Prof and for us as we wrap it up.
Very good. Very good.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we are so grateful for who you are, for your grace and for your love. Thank you for this exciting journey that we are on. And thank you for the privilege that you've given us, that we can have a Prof take us through this. And we want to pray for him, the Lord, that he has continued to be a blessing to us and even to Daystar and widely to our country. I pray that you continue to bless him and to guide him. Even, Lord, on the assignment that he has over Daystar and the assignment that he has in this country, I pray that, Lord, you continue to empower him, you give him wisdom and the strength to be able to bring change and transformation where he is. Thank you for my colleagues, each one of us, and for the work that we are putting into our studies. I pray that you give us great understanding, and Lord, that we shall be the people who will step out of Daystar with a difference. Thank you for Dr. Mwaka and everybody else who has supported us through this class. May your blessings truly be upon each one of them. We thank you and we honor you. As we break into the dealings of the day, I pray that, Lord, you shall be with us. We pray all this in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy your time as I go to do my thing in the next.
Amen.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right. See you people. Wacha mimi nilale sasa.